Hi, it's James Woodcock here. I'm here to talk about my new book, Ego Flip. So here's a question. Why do organisations exist? Well, let me tell you about something called the Evil Genius Organisation. And much to my son's frustration, it has nothing to do with minions, but it has everything to do with control. So the need to control our external environment, to assert our self-image, creates dysfunction and inequity within our relationships. That's both on an individual one-to-one basis, but also collectively. And so on an organisational level, we clearly see the presentation of a meta-ego through the collective institutionalised expressions of ego that we see polarising our planet today. This evil genius organisation, or the EGO, occurs when we identify with the system itself. It's the blueprint for the operation of egoic power dynamics that underpin organisational dysfunction, as it is for the systemisation of ego in our societies. So within the evil genius organisation, we see a complex interplay of egoic power dynamics that manifest specific axes of control, of organisational control, and they tend the organisation towards order or chaos. And there are 8 of these, what I call organising dilemmas. They reflect both the primary basis by which values created in an organisation, within a formal system, and which, unsurprisingly, they directly correspond to the 8 tenets of ego, so the underpinning egoic beliefs through which ego is sustained. And they are also the primary reason why organisations need leaders in the first place, to try and reconcile these irreconcilable dilemmas. For example, egoic dysfunction arises through a duality between what we call compliance power, so the power to enforce rules and standards, and disruptive power, so power to change the system. And this dilemma originates through the egoic tenet, or belief in causality, that cause brings an effect. In comparison, egoic tensions arise between what we can call predictive power, so power to provide certainty, to provide answers, and visionary power, power to imagine a future that doesn't exist, to provide questions. A dilemma that arises through our conception of transience, of past and future, of predictability and uncertainty. So how does an evil genius organisation come about in the first place? Well, it all comes down to give or take, or reciprocity. Reciprocity describes the relationship between 2 individuals who fulfill each other's needs, which occurs when both have differing and non-competing needs to fulfill, and where the other party can provide and fulfill that. So when relationships are not reciprocal, they break down. And within an organisation, however, while direct reciprocity between 2 individuals still occurs, indirect reciprocity means that I can still get what I need from you without needing to reciprocate, as long as you can get what you need from someone else within the organisation. In other words, indirect reciprocity ensures the sustainment of relationships that would not be sustainable on a directly reciprocal one-to-one basis. So, for example, imagine you've got a boss who makes huge demands on a team member. Perhaps all of us have examples of seeing that, where they offer nothing in return. And the team member puts up with it because they have a job to do, they get paid, and perhaps they work with some brilliant team members. But if you take out those elements from the equation, the team member would probably quit if those needs are not met. And of course, what drives these power dynamics is ego. It's these power dynamics that create the climate within a team and ultimately set the culture within an organisation. It's in this way that relationships can form that would, outside of any formal organisational context, be unsustainable. But seen within an organisational corporate setting, they are deemed commonplace and acceptable. In fact, individuals are often attracted to organisations and positions of power because of the opportunity to fulfil their egoic needs, knowingly or not, through the control they can assert through their relationships, which would be otherwise unafforded to them outside of an organisation, and organisational processes often support them in that manner. And the hard truth is that organisations as they exist today in the form of formal hierarchical systems exist because of ego. That, and not what's written on the mission statement, is ultimately the fundamental reason why organisations exist today, on the basis that no organisation can satisfy or seeks to satisfy its employees through intrinsic means alone. So one of the signatures of the ego is growth. And while not all egoic organisations do grow, perhaps due to the imposition of regulatory or other controls, it is, however, the inclination of egoic organisations to seek growth, to become more than they are. Now, we've lost 70% of our wildlife populations in the last 50 years, and the devastation wrought on our ecosystems as we continue to plunder its resources is testament to this as we seek fulfillment through materialistic experience. And so it follows that one of the most important things any organisation can try to do is to understand the impact of ego on their organisation. And it's possible to undertake an organisational assessment of egocentricity by measuring the attachment quotient, or AQ, for each individual across each of the 8 organising dilemmas through which egoic power dynamics operates. And this measurement, it's what I call inclusion variance, provides a new critical indicator of organisational performance.